The Dry Hooch mission, helping veterans and their families who survived the war survive the peace.
Dry Hooch is a place where veterans can gather informally in a coffee house, a safe, comfortable, drug, and alcohol-free environment. Dry Hooch is a nonprofit organization formed by combat veterans to help veterans in their return home.
If you would like to know more about our nonprofit organization or to make a donation and make a difference in a veteran's life, please visit www.dryhooch.org.
There you go. Perfect.
So, Ryan Nielsen Mccants. I say that right?
Yep, you said it perfect.
So here we are, January 9th.
Yeah.
Yes, it is the 9th all day.
Yes, it is.
How did you hear about Dry Hooch, Ryan?
I got a pretty long history in recovery. I think I heard about it somewhere along the way. It's definitely come up. I've been in a couple of like veteran-based recovery programs, and so they talk about it. I think you just kind of hear it around the way.
Awesome. So you're slightly interested in peer support, or at least being involved.
Sure.
With Dry Hooch, right?
Sure.
And one of the things is we have our peer mentor program through Battle Peer, and we can make you a mentor through that. But we're going to have a training at the end of the month. I don't know. How busy are you from like the 20th to the 24th? And I think it's like 26th to the 27th.
I can make time.
From 10 to 12.
I can make time.
It's
I make
just
my
like-
own schedule.
Yeah, it's pretty good about being your own boss like that. Huh? All right. So I'm going to sign you up for the QRF, and then probably I'll send you an invite. I'll get your email after this and send you an invite to our peer mentor meeting. And what's cool about like the podcast, have you done a lot of like been the interviewer?
Mm-mm. I spend a lot of time on the other side, but never on this side. Though people have said they want to get me on this side, I've just never done it.
There, I got you first.
Yeah, you
There
did. You did.
So one of the definite like tools that we use for peer support is motivational interviewing. And
Sure.
that's what I get to practice in. Like for me, my whole point is to practice that because it's definitely coming from a military background. We don't throw out like attaboys and like feel goods.
Not often.
No, it's usually like a half-ended comment like, oh, good job, dumbass.
You got to do some like wildly awesome shit in order
Yeah.
for people to like really.
Good job, you're alive. You didn't kill everybody. Let's go home and just do your job. Shut up.
Yeah, for sure.
And motivational interviewing is you're supposed to like listen to people's story and point out their strengths, like the shit your therapist does when you're down. Like they make you feel like individually special. Like, oh my God, you're so amazing. You should write a book.
I like that. That's what I expect now. So
There you go. So we can go ahead and get started with your interview. Where did you grow up again?
here in Milwaukee, born and raised.
What was your family? Hold on. I'm always screwing up. Is there anything we can't talk about?
No, go for it. I'm open book.
Okay.
That's
Cool.
why this might be interesting.
You don't know until you touch it. That, it's sensitive.
Sure.
How many siblings?
I have one half sister, but I didn't know her until I was a grown up. I saw her a bit here and there when I was young, but I didn't really know her until I was a grown up.
And why is that? Different mother?
Different mother, and there was a feud between mothers, which my father caused, and so therefore, one stayed away from the other, which kept us apart. So,
Yeah, I'm surprised you don't have more brothers and sisters.
yeah, my dad was wild. I wouldn't be surprised if I had a brother or sister out there that popped up out of nowhere. I wouldn't be surprised at all.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So, what kind of neighborhood did you grow up in, Milwaukee?
I grew up on the north side. To be specific, I grew up off of 52nd and Burleigh, right by St. Joseph's Hospital. Not the greatest neighborhood. It's not the worst part of the city, but it's definitely not the greatest.
Did you witness any violence or anything that was kind of crazy growing up?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I didn't see a lot of wild stuff. I started trauma at a young age. I think the first time I ever saw someone get killed was when I was 6 years old. It was actually my friend that I used to play with on the block across the street. It was his brother. He got into some trouble with some people, and they showed up at his house and got into it with his mom and stuff. And when he came down to the door, they killed him. It's the wildest thing ever.
So you could just see it from.
Yeah, I was standing outside playing with his brother when it happened, and of course, his brother like freaked out, and my mom came running outside, and she kept me from ever being able to talk to him. I don't think I ever spoke to him again after that. Their family moved and stuff, and he was like different, you know. So,
and how is it talking about it now?
I've talked about it a bunch. I don't know. It's interesting. I think at this point, I'm kind of in a space now where I try and play it kind of safe. And so now listening to my life sometimes is wild. It's wild.
It is. And it's like when you think something didn't affect you that much, and then you think about like little events, like how you reacted, you're like, wow, that's what that from is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I talk to a lot of people, and they're like, man, I have a lot of like suppressed memories. I don't remember if it was like a dream or that actually happened to me.
It feels like a dream sometimes.
Yeah. And then because, you know, it's way back there where you think you've moved on from it in your mind.
Sure.
And like even the mind plays tricks on how things actually happened.
Sure.
Like I'm sure we have some protection mechanisms like that. And then like also when we're kids, you know, everybody seems like, and maybe it's because it's kids are so easily like impressionable. We get gaslighted so easy into like, you know, the parents just tell you an answer that they think will make sense to you. And you just like, you don't really have a choice. You just kind of have to accept it as the truth and move on. Yeah. So, were you into sports? Were you a really active? Were you an outgoing kid? Like,
growing up, I used to spend a lot of time playing basketball, mostly just like out on the street in my neighborhood and stuff. And I would go to the parks and play. I never played any organized sports, probably because, well, that's a lie. I played football until I was a freshman in high school. And I broke my ankle, actually. And after that, I kind of just gave up on it. Actually, I started getting into trouble. And by that time, it was kind of off to the races. Whenever I would have been able to start like going back, I was doing bad. So,
how tall are you? I would say 6'2".
6'3".
6'3".
Yeah.
And how old were you when you hit 6 foot?
In my sophomore year in high school.
Yeah. Damn.
Yeah, I've been tall for a long time.
I'm still trying to figure out when to grow. Yeah. So you were a grown man in high school.
Yeah, I had facial hair and stuff too. I used to be able to buy liquor when I was like 16. Super simple.
That's when the problem started.
I started drinking when I was in single digits.
Oh man.
My father was a alcoholic and a drug addict. So like the bit that he would come around to see my mom and stuff when I was young, there was always something. He would leave like Coke out, or I would go through his pockets because he never really spoke to me when I was young. And so I would like go through his pockets to try and figure out who he was, you know? And I would find his pipe in there and stuff. That was the first time that I had ever dealt with like drugs at all, was because of my dad, for sure. Same alcohol too. He used to have a little flask. The first time I ever tasted alcohol, I was sipping out of his flask.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was a bad influence. I love him to death, but he was definitely a bad influence when I was young, for sure.
Yeah, that's better. I've heard some stories where there's like some family members, they're like, oh, somebody's going to show it to you. Might as well be me.
Yeah.
You know, so I don't know, maybe accidentally stumbling on some of your dad's stuff and getting a first impression, even though I don't think he explained some of the stuff to you too well.
No, he never explained any of it. And I never told him. At some point, I know he knew, because I used to steal weed from him. And I know he knew. It got to a point where it almost would seem like he would intentionally leave some aside or something for me. So he knew, but I never spoke to him about it. And I've never smoked with him or anything like that. It wasn't something that I ever like communicated with him. I've drank with him a bunch though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you remember any particular like role models or anybody that you really looked up to growing up?
I was one of those kids that grew up looking up to like Scarface and I don't know, like I watched a lot of like drug movies and horror movies and stuff as a kid. I didn't really have a whole lot of role models, probably rappers and stuff like that. It wasn't like anybody that was super important or influential in my life.
Yeah. And then, how old were you when you joined?
I enlisted to get out of jail when I was 17.
Dang.
I left when I was 17 because I graduated from school when I was 17 because I'm a July baby. And so I graduated and left for basic training when I was 17, turned 18 in basic training.
Yeah. So did the recruiter come see you in jail, or was the judge like...
No, he saw me and he would come through. I saw him a couple times before, but he would come through like our cafeteria area and he would be looking for people who hadn't already been like convicted.
What year was this?
2006.
Yeah, the surge.
Yeah, absolutely. Taking everybody.
Yeah.
But yeah, he would come through during cafeteria asking for people that had like certain qualifications. He couldn't take everybody, but you know, anybody that had this or that or
maybe we can
this.
get a waiver. Yeah, that's.
And he showed up in
about.
court for me, and he was like, "Your Honor, I was facing a full disclosure. I was facing a 3 to 5 year sentence for assault and battery, and I had already done maybe 6 months or so." And so he was able to get me out on house arrest, and I had to sign a contract to enlist in the Army for what would have been the remainder, which was 4 years of time. So that's how I was able to work it. He did a 4-year contract, which covered up the rest of my time, and the judge took it.
Did you end up re-enlisting?
I ended up doing 11 years, yeah.
God damn. And what was the job that you picked?
I was a 13 Fox, forward observer, fister.
What was your bonus?
I think coming in, I got a bonus of
20?
no
More?
less. I think 8,500 is what I got coming in.
Yeah, I went airborne infantry. They gave me 10 for infantry and another 10 for being airborne.
I didn't even know any better. When I enlisted, I thought everybody was the Army. I didn't know there was a difference between branches. I didn't know nothing. My recruiter probably took advantage of all of that. I just knew I wanted to do something that was combat arms because I was already doing stupid stuff. And for me, I was like, this is my normal life anyway. I'll just go do this and do it somewhere where at least I'll have praise for what I'm doing instead of going to jail.
Yeah.
And I didn't have a whole lot of options. So I didn't really learn like the structure of like the military and stuff. And basic training was a for real eye opener for me.
And where did you do basic at?
Fort Sill,
Carolina? Or
Oklahoma.
where? Oklahoma.
Oklahoma, home of the artillery.
Oh, was there females in your
No.
basic training?
No. Our basic training was just as brutal as most of the stories I hear. All male. We actually had a female AIT instructor. It was a mistake. They sent her there instead of somewhere else, and she ended up staying as their drill instructor. That was the only female I ever saw the entire period of time, though. I never even saw another one. If
Yeah.
there were any. There's not a lot of females that can work in artillery. There's only, I think, a couple of small slots they can get into. So,
Yeah. I mean, I saw them all over Sand Hill, but it was always like a lunch lady or some
Sure.
other, you know, job that wasn't MOS. But it was like, you know, when you're a boot, you don't talk to anybody.
yeah,
You
yeah,
just stare forward at position, attention, and march.
exactly.
You know, and
Yeah, we weren't allowed to talk or nothing. God, I used to hate standing in big formations, sometimes for hours, not saying a word, not being able to move, praying the breeze would blow. Like,
yeah, just shifting your knees a little bit to move something, you know.
for
And
sure.
then suddenly you get the heat on your face from an NCO, and you're like,
Yeah, and I was tall too, so I stood out in every formation.
oh, dude. Do you know what was my favorite thing throughout the whole military about tall people?
What's that?
Log PD. You know why?
Put all that weight on everybody else.
Yeah, and I'm it would touch
Stand right behind him. You won't touch nothing.
Yeah, like I would always, it'd be my finger on the log, you know, and just like my arm around it. And they'd be like, Marker, do something. I am. So totally grateful for tall people during log
Good
PT,
times.
which, you know,
Good
was
times.
pretty, yeah.
Log PT suck.
Our platoon was pretty short, so got screwed most of the time.
Infantrymen in general are normally pretty short.
Yeah. So.
Crazy.
Well, you don't want to be tall.
No.
You know, running around.
Tall infantrymen are bullet catchers.
Yeah, you want to be a midget that can hide behind cover.
Exactly.
not a tall flagpole where everybody can hit, but
Yeah.
I don't know, being a 13 Fox, you always had a radio and you'd be tall anyway.
The first time I ever got shot at was because I had a long whip out.
Yeah.
Walking through the like tall grass, my whip was taller than the tall grass, and we were walking up to a house, and there's a guy in the second story started shooting out the window, literally aiming just at my whip sticking out of the grass. First time I ever got shot at.
Oh yeah. I mean, target priorities,
Yep.
you know?
Yep, I learned real quick and early. My platoon's army, I learned real quick and early to keep that whip down unless I absolutely needed to have my long whip out. Otherwise, it just made me a big target.
Yeah. I mean, even back in the day, you watched, I don't know, was it Enemy at the Gates or like anything? You always see them just shooting the radio, man.
Yeah.
You know, he's like not.
They know it's important too because
Yeah.
comms and stuff, you know?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Absolutely.
And, you know, like most of the movies just send out, I don't even know if his job was required him to, but he was just a guy rolling out and get knocked off. They send the next guy.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, definitely priority is target, shoot the rank and shoot the guys with the radio.
Yeah, for sure. You know they're doing something. So.
Yeah. I mean, as, you know, infantry guys, we'd like to say, you know, we have it all, but like the firepower is on the radio.
Sure.
You know, we 210 rounds or 2,000 for a machine gun.
Right.
That's a 5-minute firefight.
I got a lot of love for infantrymen though.
Oh,
They got to make sure that I don't get shot while I'm trying to get to wherever I got to go. I can't tell you how many times I've had to go out to an OP for whatever reason. And, you know, my guys love me, so they always supported it. But, you know, they'd have to get ready and we'd have to go out and pull security, do all the things. So
awesome.
just for me to call rounds or do whatever, sometimes just to observe a target and never call anything, you know, so.
So from how far from basic training was your deployment?
1 year.
1 year. Okay.
Like almost exactly.
And where was your duty station?
My first duty station was at Fort Campbell, 2502 infantry. Strike force.
Where's 101st out of?
Campbell,
Are they?
Kentucky.
So that's not the same base, or it is?
It's technically in Tennessee and Kentucky both. Fort Campbell Boulevard literally is like the borderline for Tennessee and Kentucky. It runs right down the middle of the base.
Crazy. I never knew that.
Mm-hmm.
And what'd you say? What was the name of your company? What was your unit?
I was in a second of 502nd. Just like the movie. Lots of history. They love making sure you know all of it too early.
So second of the 502nd ID?
Yep.
Okay.
Not ID, infantry. It was a regular infantry battalion.
So what's the difference between infantry and ID?
I have no idea. I've seen like 2ID and stuff before. I have no idea what that I have no idea what that stands for.
I know, dude. I got so lost in the sauce whenever they're talking about brigade structures and.
That's actually a good point. I never thought about that until just now. They had like first, second, and third ID.
Yeah.
I have no idea what that stood for though.
Yeah, it's crazy because people are like, "Oh yeah, you fell over like USER and SARCOM, and then you were part of that airborne division." Da da da. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, I don't know, dude. I was just with 173rd.
Yeah, exactly. I was in Charlie Company, dude. I don't know what you want me to tell you.
Yeah, exactly.
Good times.
Yeah.
I loved it there though. That was it was a really, really tough unit. I literally felt like I went from like basic training to basic training. It was really tough.
Well, yeah, the first.
But I'm grateful for it because it kind of set the tone for the rest of my career. And all the units that I went to after that got like literally progressively worse. So I went from a really good one to a pretty good one to a shitty one. So it kind of worked out.
Yeah. It's good to go to a couple different units because then, you know, you can be like, oh, that unit was squared away. This one was ate up, you know.
I covered a wide variety too. I started off in light infantry, and then I went to Stryker Brigade, and then I went from there to heavy. So I've literally been a little bit of everywhere. Been in a cav unit, infantry, obviously in light, and then again in mech.
I have a secret to tell you. I always secretly wanted to be a tanker, but I would never tell my infantry guys.
I've driven a tank before. When we went through our driver's training, I had an opportunity just for familiarization. They make all the squad leaders and stuff do it. And so I've driven a tank before. It was super exciting. I'm not going to lie. I've never shot, but I've definitely driven one before. It's super fun being in heavy. Everything sucks, but they're really like, it's almost like glamping for the army. You know? You always got shelter and a place to like heat up your food.
Yeah, you get to ride the Cadillac with the gun. You know, like honestly, in the infantry, all you have is your pride and hate for everybody. Because, you know, like everybody else is like in better conditions and everybody else is grabbing you like you're infantry. Go sleep outside.
Our shelter when I was at Campbell was our poncho. We'd string up our poncho to make a hooch, and then we would dig a trench around us so we wouldn't wake up soaking wet if it rained. That was legitimately how I lived my entire life while I was at Fort Campbell. We walked every time we went out to the field. We never got any kind of trans, and we always slept outside.
Damn.
Even when it was really cold outside. Always.
Yeah, they want to build that like everything is miserable, so get used to it. If it's better than miserable, that's good.
Yeah, they did that really good at Campbell for sure.
Oh, yeah. You know, I think about my time in the military, and when I see it's 11 degrees, I think, thank God I'm not in shorts standing in formation. Trying to stay. Every day it's cold when I wake up and the sun's not up. I think that, because I like, even in the Army, it was hard for me. I'm like, one day this is going to end.
You obviously
okay.
Never got stationed in Alaska.
No.
That's where my second duty station was. If you didn't like that in Alaska, that's an experience all in its own, just being in Alaska.
So I'm going to back up just a little bit. Do you have any crazy or something that really sticks out your mind from basic training?
I had never legally shot a weapon before until basic training. Look, I'm just trying to tell you guys what I know.
Yeah, I mean, that's
and
legit.
so that was fun to like have a person like sit there and coach me. I had a drill sergeant that helped me shoot for the first time. And because of that, I always ended up being really good at it too, because I had someone really like hunkered down and help teach me.
Yeah.
And I got promoted to being a squad leader in basic for having like an impeccably clean weapon all the time after we would go to the range. And it led to like early leadership, which led to me moving really fast through the ranks when I was actually in, which was kind of nice.
That's awesome.
I just had like the mentality set up for it, I guess, after that, because I stayed a squad leader the entire time while I was in basic.
And you just had to sit there and like all throughout your military career, that's what you do. Inspect weapons.
Yeah.
Guess what?
Yeah.
Nobody's going home until this thing is clean. Everybody.
That's probably the most miserable thing in the military.
Yeah. Everybody is using shaving cream, solvent, whatever you can think. They've scrubbed all the bluing off and it's chrome.
Yeah.
But somehow it's still dirty. They're still,
That Starport, man. That thing would get you every time.
Oh, man, I'd totally say something, but I don't think I can retract it. The starfish from hell.
No lie.
Yeah.
No lie.
Mm-hmm. And then, the bonding time with your unit before you actually deployed. Do you have anything that really stuck out to your mind that time?
I was the first black person that a person had ever met before when I was at Fort Campbell, which I thought was wildly intriguing. He had never seen a black person a day in his life.
Yeah, wait a sec. You're black.
Black and white, technically. But that was interesting. And I was, I think, for the longest time, the only colored person in my battalion. Mm-hmm. And I used to have to get these like really wild safety briefs about we were like really close to like a KKK location in Kentucky, And so like I would get these safety briefs over like these places that were blacklisted that I couldn't go to because of that additional.
Just for you.
Yep. I would have to go to battalion every week for it by myself for like the first year. And then we started getting more people and it started to like relax a little bit. But I remember it was really awkward for a while.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, I did 6 years in the infantry and only one unit and one black guy.
Yeah, there's not a lot of colored people in combat arms.
Yeah, no.
Definitely not a lot. That's something I didn't know, obviously, coming in. I would have thought that it would be the other way around, but I guess all the guys that get into that kind of stuff make it to jail, not to the military. So
Yeah. Plenty of Mexicans and everybody else, though.
Yeah.
You know.
Lots of Native Americans, too.
Yeah. Well, I didn't run into too many natives.
I used to run into them a bunch, especially at Campbell. They always had really cool names.
It was crazy. I did meet one guy, and it turned out that he lives here in Wisconsin.
Oh, that's dope.
Yeah, and like this was not on my radar to be in Wisconsin. But anyways, so where was your first deployment at?
Iraq. I did a 15-month deployment to Iraq in October of 2007 to January of 2009.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I took leave. Well, I was forced to take leave early too. So I spent like over 12 months in country, which is brutal.
I waited until like the very end.
Yeah. That's what I would have did.
I knew like no way was I ever going to want to come back if I did it in the middle.
For sure.
You know,
I know a lot of guys that used to say it like, dude, I don't know, man.
Yeah.
That's funny.
And where at in Iraq?
Iskandaria. Iskan Providence. It's like south of Baghdad. I don't know, like 2, maybe 3 hours.
Yeah, I've never even heard of it.
Yeah, it was kind of out in the middle of nowhere. We would do like a lot of checkpoints and stuff like that. That was like our primary thing, was setting up TCPs all the time.
And so would you say we were properly prepared physically and mentally? And what were your thoughts after you did 15 months or your first time in contact?
I definitely felt like I was well prepared being at Campbell. Super well prepared. I knew my job well. I generally, I guess, had an idea of what to expect. We did a lot of training. I think overall it was a weird deployment because, like I said, we did a lot of TCPs and infantry stuff. Excuse me. Not a whole lot of 13 Fox stuff. So I spent a lot of my time basically acting as an infantryman because if I don't have a job, I'm just there with a rifle.
Mm-hmm.
And so I spent a lot of time clearing houses and doing normal stuff during that deployment. That's not necessarily 13 Fox-ish.
Yeah, because you're not dropping a
on.
lot of artillery in the city and stuff like that.
I would get helicopters on station for surveillance, and I would do occasional gun runs and stuff. I don't think I did anything that was like kinetic with like any actual enemy while I was in Iraq. Couple of firefights, nothing super crazy. It was a fairly boring deployment. So I came back. I don't know. I think the hardest part was just being there that long.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Did you guys lose anybody?
So I was literally just about to say that, and we didn't lose him. He's still alive, but my first casualty was when I was in Iraq. And I think it was a surreal moment because it could have been me, and it also could have been a friend of mine. He stepped on some kind of like crush wire detonated IED, and he lost like almost all of his lower half. So like, I think that was the only like major casualty that we had the entire deployment too. So it was like really weird because it was like, boring, really extreme, and then pretty much boring for the rest of the time. That was the only like really traumatic thing. And he did live. I never saw him again though after that. I've talked to him on Facebook and like met up with him that way, but he stayed at Walter Reed for forever. And then I ended up leaving and PCSing somewhere before I ever had a chance. I think he came back at one point. Someone told me he came back to the unit once he was like out or whatever, but I didn't get a chance to see him.
Yeah.
Shout out to him though. He taught me how to play. At the time, he taught me how to play a guitar. We were actually playing when we left. We got called up on QRF. That's why we went out, and we all came back, and he obviously didn't. And so like it was also a weird moment too. And that it was rough for a lot of people. Watching people grieve and stuff, I think was probably the toughest part.
Yeah, I hear this about QRF missions, and it's like it wasn't even supposed to be us, man.
Yeah,
We had to go in there and save somebody's ass, and we got it fucking handed to us.
Yeah,
But they do prepare you that when you're going in for a QRF mission, shit is hitting the fan. This is where it's at, boys. Like, and so many times, training, whatever, it's like, get ready for a QRF mission. Get all hyped up. Get ready. Get your gear on. Sit around. I've talked to other guys, and they're like, yeah, after our 100th time of being called up for QRF, we had things half packed. And guess what? That was the day. That was the time when I was low on water. My weapon wasn't exactly clean, like all that,
For sure.
So then after that, where did you go? After you get back from Iraq?
I got back, and I think I spent another... I think it was less than a year, 8 months or so at Campbell, and then I PCS to Alaska. And there I was with the 25th Infantry. I was actually in an armor unit, 163rd Armor, but it was with 25th Infantry out of Alaska, not Hawaii. They're at both. Okay, it's a weird how they're set up there. One's an airborne unit in Hawaii, and then the other one's an infantry mechanized unit in Alaska.
Yeah. Anybody I talk from Alaska, the first thing I ask them, were you with the airborne unit? And they're like, no.
And that changes stuff too, because if you are airborne, you go to Anchorage. If you are not, you go to Fairbanks, which is, as far as weather is concerned, the thing you think of when you think of Alaska. It's pretty brutal being up there.
And did you actually have a year dwell time or no?
There, yes. I think there, I had about another year after I got there before we deployed. And that time I only did a 12-month deployment. So it was kind of well spaced out. I was there for a year, deployed for a year, and then there for one more year before I left there.
Did you go back to Iraq or Afghanistan?
I went to Afghanistan that time. Completely different stories and
where at in Afghan?
In Afghanistan, I was in. We had this conversation last time. I goofed it too. It's Panjwai district, and it is technically the birthplace of the Taliban.
So,
or I should say, the birthplace of Mullah Omar, who is the original leader of the Taliban.
Yeah. Didn't he get one of his eyes blown out?
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember that story from a book that I read.
It was his hometown.
Yeah.
And so there was still a lot of Taliban roots there. It was a very wild deployment, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah. So describe the lay of the land, because Afghanistan is 90% mountains.
For us, it was weird because we were right on the borderlands. We called it. It was all the Arghandab desert, one direction. So if you looked one direction, it was like looking into Aladdin. It's just big, huge sand dunes with the sun. It was kind of beautiful, honestly. And then if you look the other way, it was like weed fields and mountains on the horizon.
Yeah. I mean, my misconception was I totally thought that Afghanistan was camels and desert.
Yeah, no, definitely not. That's Kuwait.
Yeah. And the crazy thing about Kuwait, when I stepped out of the plane, it was like a blow dryer was on me 24/7, and it was so bright.
Yes, that place sucks. I'm sorry, Kuwaitis. That place sucks.
Kuwait is a real deployment.
Yeah. Yeah, what you said.
Yeah. And how was that deployment?
That one was tough.
So was that?
It started really, really rough.
OEF 8 or OEF?
Where in Afghanistan? I'm not sure actually. I don't know how much I ever paid attention. I got 2 campaign stars too, so I was there through like 2 different periods, but I don't remember what they were at the moment.
Isn't that crazy how you just stop keeping track of time?
Yeah.
Because if you do that, you're just going to get really depressed
Yeah.
about your
for
time
sure.
left in the military and where you
sure.
are during your deployment and like the rest of the world.
It was
Dates and time matter to them, but not.
It was
a
during
deployment.
2011. So whatever that was. And I started off like going into country being my brigade commander's private JFO, which is like JFO is like a school that you go to as a 13 Fox. That is the school that you go to that like elevates you from doing just like rotary wing and artillery and mortars to fast movers or airstrikes, essentially. And I was an honor graduate from JFO school. And so because of that, my brigade commander made me his personal JFO. And so when I went to country, that's what I was doing. Because he's my brigade commander, though, he wasn't doing anything super dangerous. He would pawn me off on people all the time, so I would get to do stuff. But ultimately, I got kind of bored, and they kind of felt like it was a position that wasn't being used well. So they pushed me down to a company that needed me. And so that's when everything kind of kicked off. I got sent to a unit that was in Panjoy. And I got there, was well received. Everything was cool. I knew a bunch of people there already from getting around and stuff. I knew all the 13 Foxes in our company. I really knew them all in the brigade. And so it was cool. And then two weeks after getting there, on my birthday was the day I got blown up. And then another 3 weeks after that, what was best friend while I was in the brigade TAC got killed. So my initial reception in Afghanistan was rough. I remember wanting to like leave. I remember like having a moment where I was like, I'm done, dude. Like I'm done. I don't want to do it anymore. I'm cool. I was super paranoid after I got blown up.
How many months into it did you get blown up? You just lost track of time.
2.5 months.
Yeah.
Like 2.5 months. And then 3 months is when he got killed, when Sane got killed. That was the thing that really set it off, because that was like, this is real. This shit's real. A friend of mine, someone I cared about, someone that all of us cared about got killed. And you want to talk about like the saddest shit in the world, watching a bunch of grown men grieve over a lost friend. It is brutal. And then, of course, it happened several more times. So it was just... I don't know. It was tough. You bond with people really quick when you start getting into that. So it was, I don't know. I made a lot of like lifelong friends while I was there. But it was brutal. We lived in a schoolhouse that is no longer there. They blew it up. Really close to Masam Gar, if anyone's familiar with like the layout of Afghanistan. And, it was previously used. There's a really good book called Lions of Kandahar that is about them, special forces, taking over what is the base that we lived on. And our commander like had us all read it. And it was just wild, because like you would read these stories of like them clearing rooms and throwing frag grenades and pieces being stuck in the wall, and you could go back and literally see it. So it was like really weird and kind of eerie, but also really awesome, you know, like knowing the history of the base that we were at, the little schoolhouse. But it was out in the middle of nowhere, and we would take contact constantly. That was where I was joking about like we couldn't even go to the bathroom and like accidentally mess up and like hit like the white light type deal. It might result in stupid stuff. So it was always, you know, red light at night, and just taking, you know.
Battle buddy's name was
Sane.
Sane.
Yeah.
And was it machine gun fire, mortar?
Stepped on a landmine.
Oh, damn.
I also went to BLC with him, so it was like I knew him well. Besides being in the TAC with him, I went to BLC with him together. We knew each other fairly well. His wife was also black, so we bonded a lot because I understood. You know, like he was a really good dude. It was really unfortunate. He had 3 kids too. So
yeah, well, I hope when, you know, your memories come up that, you know, it's it's kind of the impact that he had on your life. And it's crazy, you know, like whatever our relationship was with those people at that time, they're gone, but they are sticking with you for the rest of your life.
Oh yeah, I talk about them constantly. I think about it weekly. You know, it was a daily thing for many years. It was a hard thing for me to actually get over for a long time. For the first couple of years, I would just get like shit faced on the anniversary of the couple friends that I lost while I was deployed. That was my way of coping. And it was really hard for me. Like every year, you know, you hit the Facebook post, all of my boys, we all post this picture. We still do that. You know, everybody grieves. For the longest time, I would do that. And then I would be hammered for like the week afterwards trying to like get over it, you know, like.
Yeah. And it's kind of like ceremonial. It's kind of like, I mean, even, man, I think it's like 15 years or I've lost track, but like, it almost seems like if you're not grieving properly, you're not honoring them enough too at the same time.
For sure.
You know, like it's less and less, but then you're like, as everybody kind of slides apart and not talks about it, you see a little post on Facebook and you're like, well, kind of let it go. But then, you know, a little voice in your head says, you're going to let a person that gave his freedom and his whole life, and you're not going to take a moment out of your day to think about him.
Yeah.
And grieve.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's like, yeah, but grieve, you get to turn it different though. You know, you turn life into a blessing for their loss and their sacrifice, but at the same time, you always wonder if you're doing enough in your life.
It's literally like the thing that perpetuates how I move in life nowadays. Like I'd be a liar if I said I didn't take like the whole like ultimate sacrifice or like commitment in service for country. If I didn't take that like really to heart, not so much because of me and what I did. That's anyone's, you know, opinion if they think I'm a hero or an asshole. But I have literally watched good people die for this country. And that, for me, makes it really hard sometimes to appreciate stupid shit. Mm-hmm. That is probably one of my biggest struggles trying to reintegrate, because it's just like I got like ghosts on my shoulders that constantly are reminding me of how short life is and what it really feels like. And now I'm out here watching, you know, this or that, or listening to some little 20-something kid trying to tell me something. It's really hard for me to appreciate sometimes. It really honestly is.
Yeah. Like my friends sacrificing everything or died. So
you guys are out
you
here
can enjoy
complaining
being a
about
shithead and how hard life is.
Complaining about how bad the cafeteria food is while I was in school at college. You know, like it's just like, dude, this food is great. Shut the fuck up. You know, like it's really tough sometimes.
And when I was younger, it's really crazy too, because the flag, yeah, I heard of patriotism and everything else, and like, you know, oh cool, military wasn't on my radar, but after time in service and actually having people pass away, that I don't know, that red color in the flag, that's meant for us.
Oh yeah,
you know, whether our government knew it or whatever, but. Man, I'd say our flag is more for our military and their symbol of freedom and sacrifice than anything else.
That's all I ever think of every time I see it.
Mm-hmm. And
always.
And I'm sure for other people, it's not. Like they can't look at it like that.
Mm-mm.
You know,
they don't have the same sense of pride. Like I said, I've watched someone die for that flag. Mm-hmm. And there's been many a times where I looked at that flag and it was the only thing that reminded me that I have somewhere I'm going to go back to that isn't the hell that I'm in right now.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's been like the thing I needed sometimes to like remember who I am. You know, you get kind of lost sometimes when you're over there.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Even in the depth of, you know, dying for a greater purpose. And I mean, in your head, you have to contemplate it and mean like,
oh yeah,
this death had to mean something.
Yeah.
Even though if, you know, the person you met at the airport is going to thank you and you're like, you don't know my battle buddies' names. You don't even know the sand I was on.
Yeah.
But I would try to take it back and been like, oh, I appreciate that. Or, you know, another thing that was hard for me in the military, and I still have a hard time, is sarcasm. And even to like people that don't deserve it.
Yeah.
You know, and the greatest people, you know, are like, oh, thank you for your service. And I was like, I'm really a piece of shit, but thank you for paying your taxes. You know, like I did my time in the military. A lot of men better than me died, but you don't need to hear that. Thank you. Awesome.
I try and mentally just like place it where I think they would have wanted it to go. It's not my favorite comment though. I will admit I'm not like a super fan of when people like, oh, thank you for your service. I think a bitter part of me is kind of, like, do you actually, this is my thing. I used to hate the little yellow ribbon era. It's like, what do you actually do?
Yeah.
Like if it's nothing, I kind of feel like a perpetrator. Take it off, there's so much, and it's always like, bring our guys home. And it's like, do you even know if that's what they want? Like, this is how I collect my paycheck. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that I want conflict, but like while there's conflict going, I mean, you get it in the infantry world, especially. Like a lot of dudes would try and deploy. Sometimes you were trying to find it. It's
like
your
this
job.
is my job, and I need to go back. I have a debt to pay.
It's what I do. I feel like I have a responsibility to do it. And I think the biggest thing is you always feel like, like, I don't want to leave my boys out there.
Yeah.
For the next person, that's
Exactly.
there or whatever.
I'm not
like,
going to want to be the piece of shit in a warm bed while everybody else is freezing.
Even now, like to
their
this
stick
day,
shit off.
if for whatever reason, if it was an option, if I knew that like a collection of some of my friends or whatever, for whatever reason, were back in country doing contracting jobs or whatever, and it was extended to me, I think I'd probably still do it.
Definitely.
I think I'd still do it. I don't know if I'm physically able, but I would still try.
Yeah, especially when you got out, you thought about it. Like, there's always that need to go back, and then reality hits you like, there's no way I'd be that dude.
Well, I've
But
sustained some injuries now, and so I've got some hardware and some stuff going on, life after that explosion and stuff.
Yeah. Let's back up a little bit. I mean, it's so easy to like,
Yeah, sure.
be able to like dump what you need to talk about and like just hear it out loud. Like, it's especially clear, crisp, and recorded.
Yeah.
It's nice.
Yeah.
But so once you got injured, how long were you out? Did they fly you out of the country or?
They did not fly me out. At the time, I had no visual injuries. When we got blown up, it was 3 of us in the vehicle. We were running a skeleton crew, of course. My gunner, still a very good friend of mine to this day, and me were the 2 that had like any complaints. The driver was fine. Mainly back pain, and I knew it at the time, but I didn't want to say anything about it at the time. But I had dislocated my right shoulder. My shoulder went back into place on its own, trying to move it. And I just never said anything about it. It hurt like hell though. And my back was the next day after I got blown up, I couldn't stand up straight. Like literally I was in pain and stuff. And like I had went back and, our medic had given me a shot of Toradol. And I passed out for like, I don't know, 11 hours. Everybody just left us alone. When I woke up, I couldn't stand up straight. My back muscles and everything had all like cinched up. So I spent like 2 weeks on like bed rest at the base, waiting to be able to go back out. That was that period where I was telling you like, I don't know if I want to do this shit anymore. That's where I was struggling.
Yeah, and it's always the mentality, at least from my experience, where they're like, is your arm blown off? Is your leg detached? Well, I don't see a problem with you.
Yeah.
You must be able to move.
They were, if I would have been at Campbell, I think that would have been the approach. Yeah. Because I was in Alaska and that strike, that was my favorite unit, by the way. When I was in, at that time, I deployed with 5-1 Cav. That was my favorite overall unit in deployment and stuff. I think.
So that wasn't when you were with 25th Infantry?
It's still at the 25th.
Oh, okay.
It's still in the 25th. I think overall, they were generally supportive, and everything was generally pretty cool. No one like was like trying to force us. We got to see the chaplain and stuff. He would come see us regularly. There wasn't like pressure. I knew it was coming though. I knew I didn't have much longer than the 2 weeks that I ended up having. I knew after that there was going to be a lot of like, I have to do something. So
did they take you back to Bagram or did they keep you at the fob?
They kept me at my fob that we were at. Small, but
what was the name of the fob?
I remember Masumgar was down the street, and right off of Route Brown was our base, which was, God, I got to remember names.
It's all good. Look it up. Come back. We'll talk about it later.
It might come to me while we're talking. It did last time after we were talking about it too.
Yeah, it's just like one of these things, like certain names, places, unit, and there'll be somebody listening and be like, "Oh, damn, I was at that fob."
Yeah. When I think fobs, I immediately think of Fob Kalsu, which is in Iraq. That was like the main base that we would go back to when we weren't out at our little JSS station out on the highway. And so, like, when I think fobs, that's what I always think of, because that was like the promised land. When we were there, we'd spend 2 weeks out living, in little shacks and sitting 12-hour guard, and then finally get to go back to what was a pretty big fob that had like a green bean and, like the cool stuff. So that was our 1 week of paradise.
Yeah.
I do remember that base that I'm talking about was right at the end of Route Hyena, which I know a lot of people are familiar with if you've been in Afghanistan.
Dude, we walked. I probably walked in a 25-mile circumference, and then every other time it was like, get on the bird, get out, land, unload.
To be fair, it'd be
like,
South Afghanistan too. But
and I was like, man, am I in Jalalabad, Abad? Where am I? And just a little place of nowhere. And I always just think like, oh, dude, if I take contact, I'm fucked.
That was mountains too, right?
Yeah.
Like heavy mountains. Mm-hmm. For us, we didn't deal with the mountains a whole lot. We could see them, but like we never had to like really deal with a whole lot in the mountains, which was nice. A lot out in the desert though.
Route Hyena, that was in Afghanistan?
Yeah. When you hit the southern end of Route Hyena was the little fob that I was at after I got blown up.
So this is what we're going to do. Are you in a good place?
Sure.
All right, cool. So what we'll do is we'll come back and hit part 2, like right after you got injured, like what happened. And then like, we'll end with like, your civilian life and like what's going on.
Yeah, sure.
Because I mean, I totally know during like, when you're telling your story, even to like a therapist or anybody, you're like, forever you're there telling your story and you don't even get to the fact of what you want to talk about in therapy. So now you can be like, hey, therapist, here's my story. Go listen to this, and then I'll come in here and talk to you what's going on. No, you don't have to do that. But, dude, to like fully be able to dump and have what you want, like recorded and out there forever, I think it's a great thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. That is cool. It's a really cool opportunity that's being extended to people.
All right, Ryan. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well,